In this video, I want to do a quick clarification about something that is important to understand with regards to cognitive psychology and also developmental psychology, which is, what does it mean for something to be quote-unquote innate? What does innate mean, even just the word in terms of its scientific definition, and is this a question of nature versus nurture? First of all, I think the nature-nurture question is actually not appropriate in this case to try to understand innateness, because innate doesn't actually mean that it's just about nature and not about nurture. I'm going to share with you a quote here from John Haidt. He's a social psychologist, and he said that the worst idea in all of psychology is that the mind is a blank slate at birth. In other words, humans are born with lots and lots of stuff, but the stuff that we're born with, the stuff that's innate, is not fixed and deterministic like eye color, which won't change as we get older. Instead, innateness with regards to psychological concepts and mental representations just means that it's a rough draft. So innate doesn't mean that something is fixed and unchangeable over time. Innate simply means it's organized in advance of experience. So when we're born, all human babies have some concepts in their minds. Some concepts about relationships, some concepts about physical forces in the world, like gravity, some concepts about numbers and language, and some concepts about abstract things like morals and ethics. But all of those things can be changed through experience. Innate just means we have something to start with. It's a rough draft, but it's not the final version. Here's an example of how this works. If you look at the things that people report being afraid of throughout the world, very often you'll see that people are afraid of snakes. This is very, very common. Being afraid of flowers, however, is not common. Now, some might suggest that this is because snakes are physically dangerous to us, and that's why we're more likely to be afraid of them than flowers. But sometimes we acquire fears of something even without direct contact or experiences. And we know this based on experiments that show what's called social learning. And this is not specific to humans. Monkeys do this too. So in some studies, they'll take relatively young and inexperienced monkeys and show them video clips of older monkeys responding with fear when they're shown snakes or when they're shown flowers. When the young monkeys see the older monkeys afraid of snakes, they quickly become afraid of snakes too. But if young monkeys see older monkeys afraid of flowers, the young monkeys won't become afraid of flowers. And this shows evidence of how learning biases occur. This shows that there's a combination of innateness and experience that shapes our emotional responses to stimuli in our environment. We have a rough draft in our minds. A, pay attention to what others, especially older members of our social group, are experiencing, and B, there's a difference between snakes and flowers. And all of that information is consolidated together to form our experiences. So, what are the conclusions here? First of all, this means we're not born automatically afraid of snakes or anything else. But it's much easier to learn that compared to fears about flowers or complex topics like calculus and chemistry, it's much easier for us to learn to be afraid of snakes. That essentially shows how innate ideas can be developed into more long-term socio-emotional outcomes.